This is my 8th attempt at doing this screen share, and I'm starting to get a little loopy, so forgive me if I make any dumb jokes. I do wish I had an outtakes reel, because at the moment where my presentation fails on this every time, I start to say all kinds of outrageous things, and I wish that I didn't delete them as soon as I hit stop. All right, anyway, I digress. This is a video to help you understand this tool and maybe help facilitate the discussion with the companion discussion questions that are provided as part of the homework from the June 15th, 2017 data session at our strategic planning meetings at the end of the 2016-17 school year. These filters will allow you to manipulate this data, and that's the key chief advantage to this. This is why I'm trying to move us away from the pivot tables, is because you can do this, and it's cool. There's still some ways that we need to grow and change in terms of how we're visualizing things, what kind of statistical questions we're asking and answering. But in general, I think you could agree that the visualizations make it a lot easier to wrap your head around what's happening here. Okay. All right. So you can see here I have all students at Irving Park with an IEP. That's the population I'm dealing with. If I ever want to get rid of that population in the view, not in real life, I click revert. All right, so I'm going to try to gloss over the simpler looking charts and really dig into some of the more complex ones, because they require some thinking around them. This shows, instead of one bar chart that shows the performance of an average kid that doesn't exist, I have the performance of every single kid right here, and I'll go in and add the names to that so that when you hover over, you'll see an individual name. Thought it was better not to do that for the old YouTubes. Anyway, if you look, this median point here on the box and whisker plot shows that half of the kids did better than this median point. Half of the kids did not do quite as well. The outer portion of this bar shows the quartile dividers. So this means a fourth of the kids did better than this point. A fourth of the kids did not do as well as this point. Likewise, 3/4 of the kids did better than this point. So if we look in our chart at this lower hinge, come on now, something's making it angry. All right, it just gets a little slow when you're clicking around on it too much. If you look at the lower hinge, that means 50% of what is typical growth. This dotted line means typical growth. So that means 3/4 of our students as a network in math did better than a half of a year of growth. And that's not bad. There's a lot of positive that we can think about with that, particularly when you see that the median is up at 115% of what is typical. That means half of our kids did better than 115% of what is typical growth. But what it begs the question is, if 3/4 did better than half, that means 1/4 did worse than half of a year of growth. Okay, these outliers are kind of on here, and they show how the data can be skewed when you use that average growth for a whole building or a whole grade as a metric for thinking and planning. It's a good start to a question, and in a way, this isn't a percent of growth. This is percent of kids who met a certain target, which is met or exceeded the typical growth from their baseline. It's a good place to start the conversation, but it can't be the place that we end the conversation. And I think hopefully I made a good case on the 15th that we need to start thinking about looking at this in a different way. Okay, you can see here in reading especially, this data is skewed down because there are a lot of really like major loss or major negative growth folks here, and they don't have a compensating major exceptional positive growth to balance them out. So these will be the people we want to identify and make sure that we have lots of support and explanations around what happened with them. All right, I kind of already talked about this one in passing, and I'm going to kind of fly by it so that I can get everything done in the time allotted. This shows growth percentile, not percentile. It's the median growth percentile. So that means if I just click one here at random, half of the students, because it's a median point, half of the students in 5th grade did better than the 71st percentile. That's crazy. It's amazing. It means like half of the students of the 230 students in this group did better than the 71st percentile in math. I really hope they can carry that into substantial learning in sixth grade. We always see a dip fifth to sixth. That would be really impressive if we could see that. Likewise, that means half of the students in this bar did worse than the 27th percentile in reading in third grade. So that's like right away, red flag. We gotta start thinking about this. Okay. Attainment dashboard. These are a lot more straightforward. I'm going to try to go super fast on this. Everyone should be familiar with quintiles. This shows the number of students in each quintile group for the 2016 and 2017 spring years. It is limited to kids with with scores in both years. This one is a similar distribution. It shows students in these different categories. I'll try to tweak the formatting so that you can see what all those categories say. But essentially what we're looking at is the number of students in these categories. And when you hover, you can fully see everything. And this is slices. If you remember Susmita's presentations in the past, slices is just a more nuanced way to look at where kids stand in terms of their being on track for college and career readiness according to their NWEA MAP linking studies. This one shows the percent of students who are at or above the 50th percentile. And remember, we're not calling that grade level because it's not like a criterion referenced standard. It is a norm study based on their age level peers. And we're going to continue to refer to that as above 50th percentile when we're talking about this, per Joey. So let's be intellectually honest about this and say what we mean when we're talking about kids being at or above 50th percentile. Hopefully I made a good case on the 15th to show that in general this year and in the longitudinal look, we're a little flat in this area. And if we're really going to measure what we've done as an organization, we have to start to think about how are we growing kids in terms of their percentile over longer periods of time so that we show that we're really a value add as an organization and that kids leave us knowing that they have a better chance in the world after they've had our education. This one is a total change in layout, total change in like what we're looking at. This looks at that, what is the value add of our percentile? It only looks at 2 years from last spring to this spring, but it helps us kind of frame that conversation about who are we really, really serving well and who are the students that we owe some more to, and then who are we kind of spinning our wheels with, all right? This again is most useful to start to develop and ask questions. So if I want to look at, let's do Prairie. I haven't picked on Prairie yet. If I want to look at Prairie, a lot more kids had a significant gain, meaning more than 5 percentile points, than students who had a significant loss in percentile status. Still kind of polarized though. It's a good portion kind of spinning their wheels, a lot on the ends, and then a smaller amount in these more incremental kind of changes. I know Keith had a hypothesis that the kids that are in this group always get the most support and attention. And oftentimes the kids who had a major drop off, we assumed we got them to the promised land, and now we pull some of those supports to focus on other kids and we lose them. I think that's pretty strong thinking on that. But I don't want to just stop the conversation there. Let's really dig into some of the individuals. A good way to dig into the individuals is this beast. And you can see the filter carried over. It still says Prairie. Rather, it doesn't say anything. It reads Prairie. And I could go in and start to look at things a little bit more nuanced. So if we look at Prairie here, this is a lot more palatable than that horrible giant butterfly / mirror reflection pattern that I showed you in the session. But this shows us kids who dropped way off in terms of their percentile and kids who grew a lot in terms of their percentile. And it also shows where they stand on this axis last year, on this axis this year. Okay, these are a really, really good way to start to ask those questions. And if I hover over, I can go on here and see an individual student's name and start to figure out, oh, this kid is like a blue, 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 blue.